This show may contain language and subject matters that are not suitable for a younger audience. Viewer discretion is advised. Viewer discretion? This is a podcast. Son of a bitch! Hello and welcome to Weird Careers. I'm your host, E.T. All over the globe, yes, it's round, people get up and go to work. But there are some fun and unusual jobs out there, and I'm here to explore them. Everything from comic book letterers to voice actors and everything in between. So please join me on my journey around the world as I dive deep into these jobs. Please follow me on the socials at Weird Careers Podcast, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and the show itself on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and so much more. If you think you have a weird or interesting job, stay tuned to the end of the show and find out how to get a hold of us. On today's episode of Weird Careers, we have Amari, who is a sex-positive virtual assistant out of the UK. Amari, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to talk about all about me and my weird job.
I love it. I'm so excited for this. The sex-positive virtual assistant. That's a job title that didn't even exist 10 years ago. But before we get into that, let's talk about yourself. What do you like to do? What does outside of work look like for you?
Oh, it's such a great question because there just is no outside of work. Everything is intertwined. I would say the most interesting thing, I can do the Rubik's Cube in 26 seconds. That's my claim to fame.
That's crazy.
Yes, that is my claim to fame. But no, I'm very basic. I like hanging out with my friends, going out for dinner and spending time with my family. It's cliche, but it's the truth. Yeah, that's it really. That's me in a nutshell. I like Taylor Swift as well. There we go.
Oh, we've got a Swiftie on deck. All right.
Yeah, we do have a Swiftie.
Love it. In a nutshell, before we get into the nitty-gritty, what is a sex positive virtual assistant? Yes. What is it you do? Nutshell.
Great question. I own a sex positive virtual assistant, the social media agency, where I work with sex positive and women's health brands and individuals, supporting them with social media, admin, websites, video editing, podcast support, anything and everything to do with sex positivity, women's health, women's rights, queer businesses and things like that.
Fantastic. So if I recall, we have actually corresponded before this.
Yes.
About a year ago when we had Reed on the show. So you do partner with her business and Come Curious as well, correct?
Yes, so I am Reed's personal assistant and I have been, 2 years now, which is really exciting. So we've worked together for 2 years and we get along really well. So yeah, basically Reed was on the podcast a year ago and I manage Reed's inbox, and I've done a little bit of stuff on Come Curious as well with their inbox. And yeah, so that's how we would have spoken. And yeah, then I think I saw you liked one of mine and Reed's collab posts, and I just saw the name of your podcast and I was like, that sounds really interesting, let me just reach out and see. And then here we are.
I am so glad you reached out. I am incredibly happy that you reached out. So from teachers, so you started in teacher school, and then you went to being a sex positive virtual assistant. That's quite a jump. So yes. Walk us through that transition, and why did you want to make that change?
Of course. So firstly, it was a complete accident. I didn't mean to. And when I tell the story, you'll realize how I jumped from kind of childcare and education to being a sex positive virtual assistant. Even though it doesn't make sense now, in about 4 minutes, it will make sense.
All right.
So when I was at university, I studied sociology. And every topic that I was allowed to pick was about sex work, women's health, women's rights, gendered violence, sexuality, porn, everything within that kind of remit. And I volunteered at 3 different charities while I was at university. One was a sex workers charity. Another one was a domestic violence and sexual violence charity. And the other one was the UK's biggest women's centre, I believe. It was at the time anyway, Nottingham's Women's Centre. And I did various bits like admin, social media, events, policy, like just some little bits and bobs there. In order to get money, I was working at a nursery, so with little babies, like just sort of ad hoc hours whenever I came back home.
Hmm.
And yeah, I got to graduate in the middle of the pandemic, and I graduated into a full-time job at the nursery
Wow.
because nurseries didn't close during the pandemic. So no complaints from me. Absolutely loved it. Got to call myself a key worker, which I still love being able to say.
A
Yeah, I just really, really, really enjoyed myself. And I thought, okay, cool, like I want to go down the childcare route, but like nursery work, the pay is just so crap until you like really
mm,
move up. And then when you move up, it's still not great. And also like you're working so much harder. So I
mhm.
was like, okay, I'm going to do my teacher training instead. Did that and it was terrible year, awful, like all unpaid. I was working 70-hour weeks and I ended up getting really ill, like physically
Mm,
and emotionally. I was signed off work for 4 months, didn't end up passing the course either. So it was like a really like down time.
mhm.
And they mentioned that I could have like some form of arthritis, which I was like, I was like 23 at the time. And I was like, what do you
Ooh,
mean? I'm 23. Like, don't throw that word around.
right?
Um, so all of a sudden, like I'd worked in childcare since I was like, well, volunteered since I was like 16 and worked in it since I was like 19. So like all I'd kind of known was working with children. That's all I wanted to do. And now all of a sudden, like I was like physically unable to.
Mhm.
And then I saw that you can go into schools and teach sex ed and PSHE and stuff like that in schools, which is what I loved. I loved teaching that when I was working in school. So I was like, wait, that's amazing. So I got trained up, spent £500 on a course to become an accredited sex and relationships educator and applied to a few jobs at different charities to go into schools and teach.
Wow.
And I started getting some interviews and had a couple of job offers. And then I was like, I physically cannot go back into a school. I was so like traumatized from my teacher training year that I was just like, oh my God, I can't do it. Like I just can't do it. And I was like, okay, well, have I just wasted like £500 for a qualification I'm not going to use? This is
Yeah.
ridiculous. So I was like, oh, okay, like what do I actually want to do with my life? And then I just emailed, obviously I remembered being at university and I just emailed a bunch of like charities like women's health one, sexual health, stuff like that. And I was like, hi, like here's my CV, looking for a remote job because at the time I
Mhm.
was like quite physically unwell. I couldn't really do an in-person job. Um, let me know if anything comes up, basically. And then 3 months later, a reproductive justice charity came back to me and were just like, oh, we're looking for a virtual assistant. You'll need to register self-employed. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, fine. Like it was literally an extra like £100 a month or something. And at that time, I was working for a nursery, just doing admin and social media, all from home. So I thought, yeah, okay, set up the business and was like, oh, okay, like maybe this could have a bit of extra income. I have no desire to be self-employed at all in the slightest. Don't want to run a business, don't care. Um, and then yeah, I got another client a couple of months later. And then my full-time job was like really unstable. It was 0 hours, and I knew like they were gonna like be dropping the hours pretty soon. So while I was looking for like another full-time job, I just sort of like carried on posting about the business and stuff like that. And then just kind of spiraled and slowly it became my full-time job. Then I hired like my own assistant. Then like I have like associates and I run like a whole agency.
Wow.
Um yeah, all in the space of like 2.5 years. And then during that time, I also decided to set up another business called Sex Coaching by Amari. So I'm also a an accredited sex and relationship educator, which I mentioned beforehand. I'm also a certified sex
Amazing.
coach and sexologist. So now I have two businesses when I didn't even want one to begin with. So yeah, that's the story. I told you it makes sense. There is a kind of correlation. Yeah.
It's a long way. It's the scenic route, but we got there eventually.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So what does it mean to be a sex positive virtual assistant?
Right. So I have my own definition of what sex positive is. So firstly, a virtual assistant is someone who is a freelancer who supports businesses in various different aspects, like from social media, admin, or things like that. So
Hmm.
that's what essentially a virtual assistant is. And then a sex positive virtual assistant means having a healthy, open, and non judgmental attitude towards sex, sexuality, and sexual expression. Sex positivity emphasizes diversity and inclusion, consent and boundaries, education and awareness, reproductive and sexual freedom, and bodily autonomy. So that's what it means to be sex positive.
I love it. I
So
love that.
combining the two together, yeah.
That's amazing, especially now with social media being such a, you know, big part of our lives, main part of our lives.
Mm.
It as a small business owner myself, staying on top of social media can be very challenging. So having you coming into like the sex industry is huge.
Mm.
And
Yeah, it's
it's
like,
so nice to see that it's coming into all different aspects, and not just
yeah.
like I'm a podcast and having an assistant.
Mm.
That's something that someone would hear about, and then you hear sex industry and virtual assistant, and you're like, ah. But I'm glad that it works.
Yeah. I think like it's really interesting because like people ask kind of like how did you pick the niche, and like I didn't, it kind of picked me. So obviously looking back at university, like I clearly always had that interest at heart, but when I first
Mm-hmm.
started the business, um I just kind of like anyone and everyone who wanted to work with me, I was just like kind of like, yeah, okay, I didn't really have a niche. And it was only kind of like a year into it where I had like a sex toy company reach out to me, a sex worker reached out to me, and like all these people who I didn't even know like existed at the time. Like I mean, obviously like I knew sex workers and like sex toy companies existed,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. But I didn't think they were people that like I could work with as a virtual assistant. And then
Yeah.
now the list is never ending, honestly. Like I've got a little list on my website, and each week I'm just like, oh, there's this person, there's this person, there's this, there's that. Like it's just, yeah, all the way from like reproductive justice to like kink and BDSM to sex workers to oh yeah, the list is just never ending, to AI, femtech, sex tech, people that work for like doctors, nurses, gynecologists, obstetricians. It's just like the list is never ending of like what comes under the sex positive and like women's health umbrella. It's crazy.
Wow. That is
Mm.
incredible. I'm gonna talk
So many
looking at
people.
your right, looking at your credentials again. Looking at your story, I have to scroll to see all your credentials and all the training and everything that you've done. Um, were these requirements for what you do, or were they optional? And if they were optional, what persuaded you to take these extra courses?
Yes. So in terms of being a sex positive virtual assistant, you technically do not need any qualification. In terms of being a virtual assistant, full stop, you don't actually need any qualifications or like you there's like a couple of legal things that you probably need to do. Like you have to
Mm-hmm.
register with the ICO if you're based in the UK, like
Of
some
course.
contract stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you are in the world, I need to register with the UK government, HMRC, blah 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 blah, all that boring
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of being a virtual assistant, like no, you don't need to have any of the qualifications that I got. So I did get one training in GDPR and data protection. That was for an old job that I had, and they wanted me to do it because I was doing their admin. I was like, yep, fine, I can do that. Um, but again, that was not essential. And then in terms of all like the, I guess like sex-based training that I did,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, the accredited sex and relationships educator course that I did, that was for me to go into schools to teach. But when I started my virtual assistant business, that definitely gave me an edge. And definitely now it absolutely gives me an edge because people know that I have like the knowledge, I'm not going to be uncomfortable, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like within the industry. In terms of my sex coaching business, I had to do some sort of training to be a certified sex coach.
Mm-hmm.
However, the coaching industry is not very regulated at all. So
Okay.
sadly, anyone can call themselves a sex coach. Anyone can call themselves or whatever coach they want
Mm.
because coach doesn't have the same weight to it that I think like therapist has, where it's like, no, you have to go through extensive training, you have to build a
Mm-hmm.
body. Like there's so many more
Mm-hmm.
hoops to jump through.
Mm-hmm.
But to call myself a certified sex coach, that I would have to do the training for. And same with like being a clinical sexologist. The sexologist part is like the training part, and the clinical part is seeing clients part. But all the rest of the courses that I've done and things like that, I didn't need to do. It was just stuff that interests me and stuff that I knew would make me better at my job. So yeah.
That's really cool. That's I again looking at the big picture. It's what the difference is between, let's say, like a therapist and a coach. I find it fascinating that they're very similar careers, but
Mm,
the credentials required are so drastic.
drastically different. And I think when I was deciding between therapist or coach. Therapists are very much like mental health professionals who look at like
Mm-hmm.
trauma and things like that, whereas coaches are not mental health professionals unless they've had specific training.
Mm-hmm.
And they're more about like educating, empowering, and like more like goal orientated.
Okay.
Whereas like therapists are more like trauma informed and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to hear about people's trauma, to be honest. I was like, that actually is not my bread and butter. Um, so yeah, and also I studied initially at university, I did a little bit of psychology and I
Mm-hmm.
actually found it way too difficult. Like the stats portion of it, I was like, I'm not going to get a degree if I do this, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I switched over to like straight sociology. I'm so glad that I did. So yeah, in terms of being
Yeah.
a therapist as well, like I knew it would involve a lot of that, and I was like, yeah, no part of this appeals to me.
Right. So
Yeah, no,
you've done
thank
a lot
you.
of research too. Like again, looking at your about you on your page, you have
Mhm.
done so much research. What kind of research did you do?
So all of that was kind of based around my degree. So as I mentioned beforehand, anything that I was allowed to like pick my electives was all about sex work,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just things like that. So I made sure that everything that I picked was basically around sex. So some of
Mm-hmm.
my favorite essay that I ever, or research paper, we're going to call it, that I did was on do friends with benefits work in contemporary society? And
Oh.
so much like getting to tell people like, oh yeah, I did research on this was amazing. I also did some research on like is sex private? So looking at how the government kind of like controls our sex lives to a degree
Yeah.
through like marriage and stuff like that. I also looked at I did like two or three bits on like sex work and looking at the industry in terms of how like violence, exploitation, and just like an overall view of like sex work in contemporary
Mm-hmm.
society. Did a couple of bits on like gender being a social construct and some stuff on like sexual assault and a
Mm-hmm.
few bits and bobs on feminism. My most like not ridiculous one that I studied, but one that just makes me laugh. I used to be vegan, and I did a essay on the sexual politics of meat. So of how like the meat industry is the same as like the sexism industry kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
how like animals are treated or how like women are treated in society. Which is just such a like 2018 me thing to write about. But yeah, so my mum used to proofread my essays and she'd be like, oh, surprise, surprise, another one on sex. I'm like, yes, yes, just read it.
That's too
Yeah.
funny. Before we get down and dirty, we're going to take a moment for you to hit pause, take a pee break, make a coffee, or whatever it is that you need to do. So don't turn that dial. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, my name is Amari and I am a sex positive virtual assistant, and you are listening to Weird Careers with Eric.
And welcome back. We are joined by Amari, who is a sex positive virtual assistant from London, UK. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. So let's get into the dirty details.
Yes.
What does a typical workday look like for you from start to finish?
So my work days are actually really chilled out now. So as I've said, I run an agency now. So I actually don't do a lot of client facing work. I pass things off to like my team and my and like my associates and things like that. So what a day looks like for me is I get up at whatever time I want because I run my own business and I do no meetings before 12. So that's the best part. I never have to set an alarm. It's amazing. So
I
yeah,
love
I'd wake up
that.
and normally go through like my Instagram DMs first and notifications and reply to all of those. So people wanting to book in calls with me, wanting to know more information about me, commenting on posts, things like that. As I said, I run another sex positive business as well as a coach. So I'll check
Mhm.
that Instagram as well, check my stories, check how many posts are doing. Then I would go on to like I've got a work WhatsApp and a personal WhatsApp. So I'd go on to those, replying to anything from like the team, clients, anything like that. And then obviously like my personal WhatsApp, which is just like my friends and family. And then I check my emails, and that can vary. Normally, it's like updates from the team or from like calls that I've had with clients or from clients themselves. So I do still do some client facing work, which is great. I work with a couple of like kinky dating apps, some sex workers, sex therapist. I work for a sex positive reverend out in the United States, which is
Hey,
crazy.
that's
How cool is
interesting. I
that?
love
So like,
that.
yes, it's so I'm not religious at all. So when she reached
Hmm.
out to me, I was just like, oh, like this is obviously really interesting, but I just want to let you know, like, and she's like, no, I don't care. Like, I just want the I need someone who's basically sex positive, like understands things. So that's really interesting seeing like
That's
that
fascinating.
kind of world because it's so far from anything that I like understand. So that's really interesting. I work for an abortion company, I work for a sex toy company, and I also work with a sort of like menstrual mental health justice, reproductive justice charity as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, and a sex therapist. And yeah, so those are sort of like the people that I work with like currently now. So yeah, and then yeah, meetings. So I have like discovery calls and like meetings with clients, podcasts with people like yourself. Yeah, and then that's kind of it really. So lots of meetings. Some days I have like yeah, like 6 or 7 meetings, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is yeah, a lot of meetings. But again, like I used to do 12 hours working with toddlers. So like I find this so easy, like so easy. It's ridiculous because I'm just like I always compare it to that job there, and I'm like, well, no job's going to be hard. Well, obviously there are jobs that are harder than 12 hours just with toddlers, but yeah, that's what my day looks like, and that's it really. Making social media posts, doing admin stuff, lots of calls. Um, yeah.
What are some of the most interesting people you've met through this business?
That's a really good question because like right now I'm kind of like not desensitized to all the people that I've worked with. There's like VR and VR erotic experience developers. So
Oh.
yeah, there's stuff like that. There's crystal and yoni egg healers. If you guys know like what crystals are, and like yoni eggs go
Hmm.
like inside your vagina, and meant to
Hmm.
have like spiritual things like that. Um,
Interesting.
Recently I've realized there's child-free influencers, which comes under kind of like my women's rights part of the
Hmm.
business. That's been really interesting. I've seen a lot of like sex parties, play parties. Um, they're really, really interesting, really fun. Dominatrix are always fun to work with.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, there's just so many bits and bobs. There's audio porn actors,
Oh,
which
wow.
yeah, just do like audio, which is really interesting. There's polyamorous therapists as well, which I didn't know was a thing. So for people that are in
Okay.
open relationships, ethical non-monogamy, polyamory,
Hmm.
whatever word you want to use. So there's therapists which specialize like just within that, which I didn't know about.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
there's so many different things that I had honestly like not even heard of. Like you can be like a
Hmm.
menstrual health coach as well, and help people
Oh.
with like yeah their periods, stuff like that. There's like pole dancing, stripping, burlesque, consent charities, pregnancy charities, abortion charities. The world of kink and
Wow.
BDSM is amazing. There's so many different things there that I was like, oh wow, like I thought I knew stuff. I don't. Um, yeah, so there's so many. There's so many. Yeah. So that's yeah.
That's fascinating.
Mm,
What is a discovery call? You mentioned that a little bit a while ago that you
yes.
do meet and greets and then discovery call was a separate
Yes.
thing. What is that?
So a discovery call is basically a call that I have with a potential client to discover each other. So it's basically just seeing it's a chance for me to ask them questions to clarify what it is that they're looking for in their business, and for them to get to know me and the agency and to ask me any questions about me and the business. So the discovery call is basically the first step in us working together. And having a call doesn't necessarily mean we're going to work together. It's just a chance for us to get to know each other, see if we're a good fit. Um, and yeah, so normally before they book the call, they have to fill out an intake form, which contains things like, what's your job? What country do you live in? What support are you looking for? How many hours a month do you want to work together?
Hmm.
And just things like that. So I have that form up like when they book the call. And yeah, normally they just kind of go, I ask them to explain a little bit more about what they're looking for, the services they're looking for, where they're at in the business, their pain points, things like that. And then I explain how we work and the process of working with us. And then yeah, they ask me any questions. And then yeah, we just kind of like go from there basically. And yeah, you do get ghosted a lot working remotely and working remotely with people all around the world. I've had calls
Mm-hmm.
with people who have been like, "Yep, I'm so ready to work with you. Send me over the contract, send me over the invoice." I do it, and then I haven't heard from them ever again.
Oh
So
no.
it does happen. It does happen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's all part of the job. But yes, that's a discovery call.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's the best thing about what you do?
Oh, such a good question. Honestly, working from home changed the game for me. Like, I cannot express to you, like, the idea of even having to go into an office once a week, like, the mere thought of that stresses me out. So working
Right, yeah.
remotely and just having that flexibility to do like because when I first like started working remotely, I was really ill. I was going to like doctor's appointments left, right, and center. I was going to therapy, physio, gynecologist, whatever the eye doctor is. Like literally, I had like four or five. I was have going to like two or three appointments every week, just about like various bits and bobs. So I needed like that flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I had a taste of that, I was like, oh no, like how was I ever working 11-hour shifts day in, day out? And like not being able to like call the doctors if I need to or like anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. So that is still my number one favorite thing about my job and owning my own business is the remote work. But the second thing is like it's just such a cool job. Like just the
Mm-hmm.
people I get to meet, the stuff like I get to work on, I get to see, and it's like creating a post around like BDSM or like all these, and I was like, wow, like, it's just cool. It's just so cool, and like everyone in the industry is like you'll be surprised there's not really like a lot of competition. Everyone's quite like really supportive and things like that. Obviously like with every industry there are people that are just a bit like okay. But in general everyone is just so supportive and so nice. And yeah, it was just yeah, it's just such a cool job, and I get to do so many cool things and meet so many cool people. And like perks of running my own business as well, I get to decide who I work with, which is great because yeah, I'm sure as everyone has been in sort of like 9 to 5 jobs, you don't get to choose who you work with. And I think it's also quite difficult when people don't have the same like values or thoughts and feelings and stuff like that as you, because that can
Mm-hmm.
be quite, yeah, quite difficult. So yeah, so many good things.
There are two sides to every coin.
Yes.
What is the downside of what you do?
So technically I'm freelance, I'm self-employed. So that means you
Mm-hmm.
don't get a steady paycheck each month. Yes, I built the business up quite well, and I would say I earned somewhat the same each month-ish, but I went to Australia for 5 weeks and I didn't take any discovery calls. I did like a bit of work here and there, but obviously like those 2 months that I like was away, I obviously took a huge dip in my income because that's,
Mm-hmm.
the nature of being self-employed, freelance, run your own business, whatever. So I'd say
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing. And then the second thing, it's just so hard to be freelance in terms of like a tax and HMRC perspective. There's so many little things they
Mm-hmm.
don't, and like I have the most amazing accountant in the world. It's wonderful. And my mum's also been freelance for the past 10 years. So like she was so helpful setting everything up and bits like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still really hard. Like there's always like some random unexpected cost that I have to pay. And I'm like, oh, like I feel like I'm getting to the hang of it now, but it is
Yeah.
really they make that quite difficult. And then in terms of like working in the sex industry as a whole, I think like censorship and shadow banning and stuff like that makes it quite hard. So, we're
Mm-hmm.
always at risk of like having our accounts removed and stuff like that. And, my job is social media. So if I was to lose my accounts, that would be like heartbreaking. Because
Absolutely.
literally I've spent, like years on those accounts and stuff like that. And, it happens one of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest sex influencers in the UK with 425K followers, her account's now been deleted
Mm-hmm.
twice in the past couple of weeks. And that's where they get all their income from. They're married, they've got children. Like there's, it's so scary. So I think that's one thing
Mm-hmm.
as well. The first time I was ever censored or like shadow banned on Instagram, I thought that was it. I was like, that's it, my business is done. Like, what am I gonna
Oh
do?
no.
And luckily, like there's ways to work around it. You will be fine. And I like set up a website. I use LinkedIn quite a lot. So I'm sort of like spreading out my content and things like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'd say that's one thing as well, where like I don't want losing my account to be like the end of my business, which I wouldn't
Hmm.
be, because I've like really got the foundations in place and like everything is set up really well. Um, but yeah, I would say those three things. I was going to say the fourth thing, kind of like stigma, but to be fair, I don't really tell random people what I do. I'm just kind of like, oh, I do social media. They're like, oh, okay, cool. And then
There.
like depending on who it is, so like I went out for a friend's birthday the other day,
Mhm.
and I this is my first time meeting her work friends, and like I knew I could tell them what I did, but again, I was like, oh, like I do social media, like I'm freelance. They're like, oh, okay, like any companies in particular, and I was like, oh yeah, I was like, yeah, like sex stuff, women's health, kink, like things like that. And they're like, oh cool. And like I told them like a bit more about it, and like that was fine. Then when it's other people, I'm just like, yeah, if my Uber driver's asking me, I'm like, oh, I do social media. They're like, oh, who for? I'm like, various people and companies, like nothing in particular. Um, so yeah, I was gonna say stigma, but like I just keep my mouth shut really. Like um people don't, and if I don't know you, you don't need to know what I do. So yeah, I'd say those would be my downsides.
So, just to expand on one of those, how do you navigate not getting shadow banned?
I have a shadow banning and censorship guidebook, and I also have done an
Oh,
hour webinar on censorship and shadow banning. So it's an area that I feel like I know well, but also it's like forever changing. And yeah, so I can send them over to you and you can include them in the show notes. But essentially
yes.
there's so many different ways. I'll send it to you over Instagram. There's so many different ways to go about it in terms of like,
Amazing.
so it's really interesting. Like the biggest one is always like, oh, censor the words that you say. So instead of saying sex, say like S_X. So like the algorithm doesn't pick
Yeah.
up that you're saying sex. But
Hmm.
I had an incident on TikTok where I put the
Hmm.
hashtag segs positive, so sex spelled SEGGS,
Hmm.
and it removed the hashtag, and it was like, oh, sorry, like we're flagging this because we know there's like inappropriate content underneath it. So it's basically under the algorithm
Mm.
is really understanding how we're speaking. Um, and now apparently, again, this is like not factual, but it's like, yeah, they know that like the peach emoji we know we're using for a bum, the aubergine emoji we
Hmm.
know we're using for a penis. So it's like sometimes people say like, oh, don't use any of those emojis because it knows what you're trying to hide, basically.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you've asked me now, and all of a sudden every single bit of advice I've got has gone out of my head. But I have a whole guidebook on it, and I did a whole hour webinar on it. So yeah, you can check those out. And yeah, it's just like
Hmm.
yeah, having like separate accounts for things and like not posting for a while helps. And yeah, there's various bits and bobs. So yeah, it's a complicated thing. You know, I say to clients as well, I'm like, I can give you all of this advice. I can send you over my blog, my webinar, my guidebook. Doesn't mean your account won't get deleted. It doesn't mean that you won't get shadow
Hmm.
banned. Like there is actually no
Hmm.
foolproof way. I know someone, my friend, she had an Instagram account from year 7. There was nothing on it. Like it was just like her and her friends. She had it for about 10 years. And then Instagram just deleted it for no reason. And she was like, what the hell? And like
What?
not in ed, like literally it was just a random private account, like there was nothing on it, and just got deleted. So like you're just
What?
no one's safe. Yeah, so she just made a new one, and I was like, what the hell, like could you like appeal it? This was maybe about 6 or 7 years ago now, so I don't know what the appealing process was like then. But she was like, nope, she was like, I had literally, there was no way to get in contact with them, like literally had no idea what to do. I was like, that's crazy. Yeah,
That's insane. So make sure
yeah,
you head to adminbyamariagency.com for those
yes,
resources. They will also be in the show notes. So if you want to check that out, it will be available to you. Do you have any tips
yeah.
or advice to anyone who wants to do what you're doing?
Yes. So one, I offer 30-minute free coaching session for anyone who does have any like specific questions that they want to ask me directly about getting
Mhm.
in. So I do sort of two separate things. Like one's about kind of getting into like the sexual wellness industry as a whole, and the other is like getting into like a virtual assistant
Mhm.
role, whether that's in this industry or not. My advice is niche down, work out exactly what it is you want to offer, whether that is your niche down to a service or your niche down to an industry. Pick one. Niche down was like my biggest superpower, and I still have millions of people I can reach out to, which is amazing. Step number two, reach out to anyone and everyone you can. I have literally messaged thousands and thousands and thousands of businesses and people just being like, hey, these are my services. Let me know if you're interested. And that is the reason why I've been able to kind of like, yeah, just create the business that I've been able to create. Put yourself out there. I was so scared to show my face to begin with. And now I'm on the internet talking about dildos and condom and lube and, you know, so yeah, do what you're comfortable with. But yeah, my biggest tip is always, yeah, just outreach, make yourself known. Like people aren't just gonna magically stumble across you. Well, sometimes they do. I do still get the occasional person like, I just saw your Instagram. I was like, oh, cool. But yeah, you need to put yourself out there and yeah.
Amazing. So we've had Reed on the show. We've mentioned that before.
Yes.
It's funny just because now we've had both of you on the show. How did you two meet?
Great question. I DM'd Reed. What year are we in now? I DM'd Reed maybe like 2 years and 1 month ago. So September's our 2 years.
Wow.
Are we in September now? Yeah. And I just DM'd her and she didn't read it because her DMs are, as you can imagine, crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
she then messaged me maybe a few weeks later and was like, oh, hey, like one of my friends recommended me to you. Didn't see this message. I've been looking for a PA, like my emails are crazy. Like, can we hop on a call? And I was like, yeah, of course we can. Hopped on a call, had a chat and was like, okay, cool. Like, let's start working together and see what happens. And here we are 2 years later. So yeah.
I love that. That's so great.
Yeah, it was literally just stumbled across her profile. I was like, oh, okay, like she's cool. Um, I'll just pop her a message. And yeah, it was because one of her friends technically recommended. So she hadn't seen my original message, and it was one of
Mm-hmm.
her friends that recommended me. And then she DM'd me, and here we are. Yeah, literally 2 years later, which is crazy. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you've seen Reed's business grow and evolve a lot over the last few years then.
Yeah, I think there's always so much going on. It's incredible. Like it's incredible
Mm-hmm.
all the different bits that she does. And like it's quite cool. So she has worked with me with my agency. So one of my team members has created her website and another one of my team members does her like event management as well now. So that's really fun, just like being able to like, you know, when I first started working with Reed, I was just like this starting off really new. I didn't have like any sort of like processes in place. I was just like this one little like person. So for her to be with me kind of like from the beginning of everything kicking off to like where I am now that I have like my team members supporting her in like two other capacities. Um yeah, is pretty cool. But yeah, no, she's great and she's always like shouting out my business and we've gone to like a couple of events together. We did a recent social media collab post, which you guys should check out on why you should support sex workers, even if you're not a sex worker yourself. So definitely check
Mm-hmm.
that post out. Yeah,
We'll have all of the Instagram and social accounts in the show notes for you as well.
yeah.
Before we finish up today, we have a question for you that we've asked everybody on the show, from Linda
Hmm.
Valentine to Mike Ailey to Elmo's Kevin Clash. What did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was little, I wanted to be a vet, like every other basic girl out there. Then as I kind of got into secondary school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to
Hmm.
uni. When I was at university, I wanted to do charity work. I wanted to actually be a like policy and advocacy officer for like women's health and women's rights and stuff like that. Then I wanted to work with children as a teacher, and now I hope I'm doing what I'm doing now forever.
I love that. It's amazing. You went from here to here to here, just complete like three different
Yeah,
aspects of life. I love that.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been an absolutely incredible opportunity. I've learned so much, and I hope our listeners have too. Um, Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
Hey, do you think that you've got a cool or interesting job? Maybe you do. Your 9 to 5 could be a lot more interesting than you think it could be. Or maybe your neighbors, or your cousins, or your best friends, or your weed dealers. Okay, maybe not that last one. But if you think you've got a cool or interesting job, shoot us an email at weirdcareerspodcast@gmail.com. Liked what you heard? Make sure to give us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to us. It really helps us to get seen. Thanks for listening, and until next time, I'm ET. Cheers.